I'm AP Townley, and this is Roleplay Culture. Let me ask you, have you been feeling a little distracted lately?
You have my undivided attention.
ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. This and other neurodivergent disorders can be a challenge to have if you are a player of D&D and really any other RPG or ttrpgs. It can cause problems with focus and keeping the story and the rules straight. And it's an important topic to consider with the games that we love. People have these conditions and they want to play D&D with us. So how can we best help them to make their experience at the table as smooth as possible? It would be remiss of me to delve too far into this subject, as I do not have ADHD or any similar condition. So let's turn this over to someone with a bit more experience on the subject.
I'm Pre-Gen Character. There are many reasons players might struggle to pay attention on game night. Maybe they've got some work issues going on. Maybe some family stress on their mind. Maybe they've had too much caffeine.
Or too little. I forget how it works with you. Anyway, you haven't drunk exactly the right amount.
However, some of your players may just be wired that way. ADHD and other neurodivergencies can be both a blessing and a curse for tabletop gaming. Hyperfixation is useful as hell, but only when it's pointed in the right direction. When it's not, we do the best we can. That said, here are some of the tricks that I've used to keep focus at the table when my ADHD says no. Quick disclaimer, players are under no obligation to share their medical diagnoses with the table or the DM. If a player chooses to share this information with you, please treat them with respect and honor their desire for privacy. Number 1, be the scribe. Sometimes when people are talking, the ADHD brain likes to take a little walkabout elsewhere, no matter how hard you try to focus. One way I force focus during the storytelling of a game is by writing everything down. When the DM is pontificating about the story or the world, taking copious notes helps me keep focused on what's being said and avoid distractions. It also helps me keep the story in my head from one session to the next. Just make sure you're using a shorthand that you can read afterwards. It's nothing worse than not being able to read your own writing. Fighting reader's block. One super annoying trait of ADHD is being unable to read when my brain says no. If the DM presents me with a printout, sometimes my brain will just see a scramble of letters that I can't interpret or put into words. In these situations, I've found 3 things that help. Number 1, the DM could include some kind of illustration on the handout. This gives my brain context that it can use to anchor for the words. Read it aloud. It's a different kind of focus when you read in your head than it is when you read verbally, and sometimes that's the ticket to get past the block. Leave the game space and read it. Eliminating distractions can help focus, though personally I find the social pressure of stepping away way more distracting. The struggle of combat. Anyone who struggles with attention issues will tell you that combat in D&D is the biggest challenge. The time it takes to get from turn to turn can be excruciating, and there's only so much planning you can do in the intervening time. So here's how I keep focus. Number 1, hit point tracking. Keeping a tally of the numbers flying around the table is usually the DM's job, but focusing on the information is a good way to keep your mind on the game. Number 2, keep your hands busy. We've all spent downtime in D&D stacking dice, but there's only so many times you can do that before the party gets annoyed by the sound of crashing math rocks. The odd fidget toy or puzzle can help you keep focus on the table. Even doodling or straight up illustrating the game is a great way to keep your hands busy without making a mess. Number 3, and my personal favorite, snacks. I find I focus better when I'm eating. Weird. Having a healthy snack like grapes, nuts, dried fruit on hand to pop in every time I find my mind wandering is a surefire way to tug on the leash.
Let me jump back in here for just a sec. As someone who DMs for others with ADHD, I've recently found one way to help with the attention span problems. It's really simple. Just keep the sessions a little shorter. Most of the time, our games would run around 4 hours long, which I think that's pretty standard. But now I try to keep it at about 2.5. I found that attention can start to wane at about the 3-hour mark. Try to find some hacks to be more efficient at the table and make the best use of your shortened time. I tend to pre-roll what I can, such as initiative, have a series of encounters already planned out for random encounters. They just won't be random for me. Back to the show.
Were there any words in there? This is the hardest one for me. Sometimes when people are talking to me, my brain just goes, nope, that's not English. ADHD life would be better if everything had closed captioning. But since that technology is unreliable, here are some tips for fighting past this most embarrassing trait. Number 1, everyone's least favorite, ask the speaker to repeat themselves. This is hit or miss, because if they say it the exact same way, my brain still garbles it out. So the best way around this is to ask them to say it differently. Sometimes just the restating is enough to get past the block. Number 2, changing position. Standing or other physical movement can sometimes shake out the cobwebs and let the words get past. Number 3, call for backup. 99% of the time, I'm gaming with people I've known for decades, and they know that I struggle with auditory processing. If something isn't getting through, I'll ask someone at the table to restate it for me until I get the message. However, if you're playing with people you don't know very well, be careful with this one. Some DMs might take offense.
There are some tips for both players and DMs to handle having ADHD and playing with someone who has it as well. We really hope this is helpful. We want our tables of D&D, and any other game really, to be as inclusive as possible. So leave your tips and tricks in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, smash that like button. Check out our other videos over here, and I will see you in the parlor.